Welcome to Dan's Custom Projects, where doing things your own way seems to cause the internet to lose its mind. So on that note, we're going to attempt to make a GM LSD fit into a Merkur pot. Let's see where this goes. Alrighty here. I've never had one of these apart other than years ago when I blew all the spider gears apart doing one wheel peel burnouts. So it looks like it's very similar to a Ford 7.5 or 8.8. You got C-clips here. Let's see if we can pop them out. I know on the 8.8s you've got to pull a spider pin to get these out. May have to as well on this. I don't see let's see what I can find. Oh, there's a roll pin. There's a roll pin here. Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to go do about this a little bit differently here, and I found a couple more chisels. We're going to set one on each clip. Oh, I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's see. Taking you guys for a ride on my forehead here along. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to see that very well, but we're going to give her a whack. Oh, and it dropped. Whoops. There's one C-clip gone. So now the other one is kind of tucked away in there. Got a ring gear in the way. See if I can get that out the same way. Oh yeah. Yep, that's out. Now, I don't know if you can see that or not, but let's get up here a little bit closer. And our axle should be free to come out now, probably with a little bit of prying and persuasion. Right, there's one, and there's two. I don't know if they're different or if they're the same. We'll burn that bridge when we get there. These are side adjusters, side load bearing adjusters, so tightens up or adjusts all your preload on your carrier bearings. That's a lock to hold them in. And we'll see how seized up these things actually are. And all right, we're back again. Helps a lot of times give these things a little whack to just kind of knock them loose a little bit. Not that way. See if I'll have to put this on the floor stand on it just to get that thing loose. Whoa! Just about drop it in the process. All right, that one's loose. Set that back up there. Both side adjusters lock come loose, so that's a bonus. Nothing's broken yet. They do make a special tool with a, it's got a ratchet hole, a square hole, and 3 little fingers that grab these side adjusters. I'm not a fan of this, but we'll see what happens here. What's going to happen is I'm going to break one of those ears off, and I don't feel like doing that. And I'll put a bunch of junk down in the diff too and make more people lose their mind. So maybe I'm going to fabric cobble up a little tool to take that apart. And either way, that's got to come off both sides. All right, just like that, we got a new tool made in the shop. It's also definitely helpful to have a plasma cutter and a welder. So yeah, I had a big washer hanging around. Marked it out, plasma cut it. Now we got a tool to get in here. I've already loosened these up, and I ended up having to put the cradle, the differential back in the cradle, just because they would not come loose on the bench. So we've loosened them up, but here's the other problem. This thing is even snug. It seems they want to be walked out a little bit at a time. And even that is being problematic. I don't know if it's an O-ring inside there binding up and locking everything shut again, or what, or locking everything tight. And now we seem to be moving not too bad. Whoop. Until we slip out of there. I didn't say it was a good tool, I just said I made a tool. So while I wrestle with this, I'm not going to bore you watching me wrestle. I'll cut back to once I have these out and I'm back on the bench. All right, we got the diff out. These unthread, and yeah, it was hanging up on the O-ring. So there's an O-ring in here, a bearing race, a seal. Looks like that's about it. Here's your seal from the other side, from the outside of it. And anyway, yeah. Here's our differential and ring gear. We're going to pop the ring gear off and compare it to the GM diff, height-wise, everything else, and see what we're dealing with at this point. See if the bolt holes will line up. I've already cracked all these bolts loose, so I didn't crack that one loose, or that one. All right, made a liar out of myself here. So these are right-hand thread bolts. What I found with the GM ring gear, they were left-hand thread, and it took me breaking a bolt to figure that out. Not a big deal. Nobody's after a 308 GM 10 bolt 7.5 inch gear anyway, so I don't care. And ideally, a little bit of heat would take this ring gear right off. I don't have a torch, so we're gonna go a little caveman on this. And already it's loosening off. Now, if somebody's watching, I know you're going to tell me, oh, I should have had a block of wood under that ring gear. I should have used the heat and get that off of there and not let it drop on the table. Guess what? I didn't. So right off the bat, oh, let's see if I can get you a good picture of you. Right off the bat, we've got a height difference there. Not exactly sure yet where that height difference is coming from. Because they physically look to be pretty close to the same size. Without measuring anything yet. Yep. So we'll probably need a ring gear spacer and some longer bolts for that ring gear. All right, it has been a minute since I've been out here playing with this thing. Mainly waiting after Christmas and waiting for a ring gear spacer. So that ring gear spacer is about 5/16 of an inch. The difference between the flange on this one here to the stock one is about 3/8 of an inch. We can take care of that gap with the bearing caps. So I've been playing around trying to get this thing to fit inside the carrier, and I've got it now. I had it with this bearing off, and I got it in there, and but I really wanted to put it in with this bearing attached, so if I ever need to remove it, it's not a problem, because getting that bearing off while it's inside there would be a tough job. So currently I've got this thing clearanced enough, and I'll show you where I clearanced it to fit this whole assembly in. Now what I got to do to put it in though is remove 3 ring gear bolts, and with the spacer on there you need a longer ring gear bolt than the factory one. So what I found was a 2.3 liter Ford manual transmission flywheel is the right length bolt, the right size. It is 10 mil by 1 thread pitch, and it's 30 millimeters long. So if you've got some spare flywheel bolts, that'll work. Now let's get to where I clearanced all this. That is a factory GM diff, by the way, like the G80 cuckoo clock, I think they call it. It's got some funny mechanism inside there. Whatever, it was cheap, so if this works, maybe I'll upgrade to a better one. Now for clearancing. Oh, what do we got here? There we go. Now we got some light. I notched this side out. This is the ring gear side. I notched that side out, and it's, it's not a lot. It took a bit of die grinding, but I've got a pretty aggressive bit. And also clearance, gave a little radius to this this edge, top and bottom, and that's only to get the carrier itself to fit in there. As for this side, again, just a little bit of notching there. Now everything fits. What I did notice is the ring gear bolts rubbing all around here, and obviously I haven't set anything up for as far as pinion depth, or not pinion depth, but backlash. I haven't set any of that up. So if it was set up, I don't know if it would clear. I wasn't going to take that chance when I had everything together, so I took a carbide burr, a big round egg-shaped burr. There you are, pretty aggressive one. And gave that a little tighter radius. This one was for a 308 GM gear. So that right there puts this flange here at a different depth than, or different height, different depth, whatever, than I think it's 355 and up or something like that. I'm not sure. I know it was a 308, and I know it's a different depth than the higher gear ratios. So that's why the spacer and the longer bolts, obviously, and that's probably the same reason why it hits there. So, all right, we're back. We're going to assemble this loosely, just so we can check, see what we've got to do for machining, if we have to do any machining, to get these to lock in there with the C-clips. But I'm going to have to loosely assemble this, and see where it goes from there. So let's see if we can get this in here with the bearing on, with all the bolts in, and we'll start playing around from there. Oh yeah, I'm an idiot. Those bolts are still loose. And chrome sockets, because I like to live dangerously. I put the Dan in danger. Now let's see where that ends up. So we got to really tilt that thing to get her in there. Might have to do a little turning here. There we go. So that now fits in there with both bearings installed, and all the bolts in the ring gear. Don't worry, they'll all get taken out, put some thread locker on it, and torqued to proper spec later. This is just a quick rough assembly here, just to get things lined up and stuff sorted out. I'm also going to have to go and clean all this off of there. The seal still looks good. Maybe it'll get new ones. I do got to get a new O-ring for the groove there. And well, let's start playing here for mock-up fit. These thread into there, they're much like a 9-inch if you've ever had a 9-inch apart, but all this would be on the inside of the casing, where on this it's all exposed. So the bearing races are already in there, still in there I should say, from when it came apart. And you got to go a long way. I'm going to take that O-ring off of there just to make things easier. As you've seen before, I had made a tool, and that sits in there and tightens and loosens that off of there. If I had to make this again, I'd cut that socket a whole lot shorter so it didn't have all the side loading when you're trying to use it. The side loading wants to make the thing eject from the pocket. Already not centered up. Let's try that again. This one's going to have to get turned in before I go too far on the other one. Oh, there's got to be something bound up in there. Alright, rather than you guys watching me ride the struggle bus threading that thing in, I did take it out, cleaned it up, lubricated it some. Must have been some little bit of junk caught in the threads. So anyway, now that's all in and together. As you can see in here, the passenger side axle shaft. Here, let's see if we can get a good view. Passenger side axle shaft here does come all the way through, and it will bottom out on the center pin. I'm obviously missing the worm screw, whatever it is. That holds that in, so that's not a big deal. I'll take care of that when I get one. Mock-up, right? So that will come in all the way, and I can get the spring clip onto it. And this is the spring clip. Not like a typical GM clip, C-clip, where it, let's see if I can get a good picture of this, good video of it. Not like a typical GM clip that needs to be slid inside the gear to hold it in place. This one will actually lock onto the axle stub shaft itself. See if I can get that. So that will actually lock onto the stub shaft itself. You don't have to remove the center pin. There we are. Now the driver's side, it's in there. I suppose I could probably do a little machining to this face to get it to slide in a little further and get that spring clip on. I've got a lathe, so I'm not scared of that, but might be easier. I don't know if I'm trying to get you in here so you can see what I'm seeing. You can just see that groove, this groove here on this side. So I'm going to try putting a front wheel drive axle spring clip on that so I can just slide it right in and let it lock in on that. Realistically, it won't go anywhere once it's in the car. You got your CV shaft that comes in here, and there's a little bit of wiggle room in the CV shaft, but it could move just enough to allow a little bit of oil leakage, and that is actually a concern on this side. I'm not sure where the oil seal inside here rubs on this yet. Putting my flashlight right in your way. I'm not sure where the oil seal inside this rubs on that face yet, so it may require a spacer on here, and I've seen that on the MC squared or MC2 thread for putting a GM limited slip in a Merkur diff, but they are also using Eaton diffs, not the actual GM cuckoo clock diff. So as it sits there, I got to get a front wheel drive retaining clip, put it on the axle shaft, see if it'll actually hold it, find out where my spacing is and where that seal is riding on there, and after that we'll get some new parts and throw it all together. This diff is the gears inside here. Oh, hey, look at that, it locked. There we are. The gears inside here are a little chewed up. They've, I think it's 30 some years old. They come out of an old G body. So it's seen some wear and tear. I'm not afraid to put it in my daily and beat it up a little bit. It might get tested that way. Aside from that, we're going to get this thing working and get a Posi into Mrs. Custom Projects Merkur, and hey, maybe we'll go 12s with that thing eventually. So that's that. All right, for the next part of this build, I had to machine a little spacer. It's about 1.420, 1.15 to 1.420, something like that. On the outside, inside is 1.12. Made that out of a piece of 1.5 inch DOM by 1 inch ID, and parted it off in the lathe. I'm not going to record all that because it's boring to me doing it. It's not going to be entertaining for anybody to watch. So if you're interested in learning how to use a lathe, there's far better channels. This old Tony is one of them. There's a dozen others out there. Anyway, let's go back to here. That is going to go on there. This gear, that's one of my side gears. That's going on there. That's going to go on top. And a C-clip goes into here. That way the axle shaft can't slide out any further out of the diff and out of the seal on the side. So that's the reason for that. I'm going to assemble this thing again and put everything back together here. The diff is all together. Let's go over a little recap of what is involved in putting the GM G80 Sure Grip 7.5 10 bolt Posi LSD limited slip, whatever you want to call it, into a Merkur housing. So there was some machining done onto each of the drive axles. I forgot to take recordings of it. I'll see if I can find some pictures, put them up there. On the inside, you can see right in here, there's a little snap ring, and that was a 26mm snap ring, just like this one on the table here. I had to clearance it a little bit, just a little bit of grinding around the edges, just so it fit inside the inside diameter. And there's a little bit taken off of the stub shaft on this side, just so I could push that in a little bit further. This side, there's the original Merkur C-clip. That's in there. And right behind that, you can see there's a little spacer I made. It's 0.175 inch thick. And that keeps this stub shaft from popping outwards out of the seal. So to get that to fit, and that was a 308 carrier, so I need a ring gear spacer. The ring gear spacer is about 5/16 of an inch thick. The bolts were 2.3 liter turbo Ford flywheel bolts for a manual car. Obviously clearancing the housing and just a little radius on there, as well as clearance the housing on this side and a little more radius, just to allow the edge of the carrier to pop into there. Then you set your backlash, and this ought to be good enough to go into my car for testing, at least. The ring gears are still chewed up. I didn't change them. I just can't justify spending money into this diff, especially because the ring gears are over 200 bucks Canadian. Or not the ring gears, the side gears and the spider gear kit. It's over 200 bucks. I can't justify spending it into this diff. So I'll put it in my car. If it works good, I'll build another one with Eaton style and put it into Mrs. Custom Project's car and make hers go real good.